Alright guys, so today what we're going to be doing is adding Firebase to our Android app. So Firebase is basically a backend that Google provides for mobile apps. Um, Most custom backends require a lot of setup and maintenance, and Google provides these services at a very good rate for us without too much work on our part. So for the purposes of class, please try to use Firebase as much as possible since we don't want you dedicating too much time to meddling with the backend. So to get started with, what we're going to do is start up Android Studio. While that's getting set up, let's create a new Firebase project. Call it Firebase Demo. Cool, so let's start a new Android project. Call it Firebase. Let's click next. Next, leave everything as defaults for now. And sweet, that is getting created. So as we can see on the Firebase console, you have access to a lot of different things: authentication, database storage, hosting, test lab, and crash reporting. But the first thing we have to do is add our Android app. Let's press that. So it's going to require your package name. Your nickname is optional, but it also has this optional signing certificate. We're actually going to show how to get that in a little bit. Okay. So let's open up our Android manifest. That's being really slow. All right. Awesome. So we're going to copy our package. And the next thing we want to do is basically follow this page to show how to get our fingerprint. So we're going to copy this, and I have it there, but we'll run it again, and I think the password is Android, and then we'll copy the SHA one. And then we'll paste that in, and we'll click Add App. Okay, sweet. So it's going to ask us to download this Google Services.json and to add it under our app directory. So if we go to Android Studio, take a look at our setup, we can move this under our app directory. Sweet, it's there. And so what you'll see is a bunch of configuration. So when Google Services starts up, it'll basically look for this file and read it in and initialize everything. Cool. So what we're going to have to do is add this to our Gradle scripts. We're going to add the class path. And then we're going to add this apply. And remember to add this at the bottom of the file. It seems to affect the order of operations, so or it has to do something with setup, so please make sure to add it at the end. Okay, I'm going to sync. So let's finish here, and the app has now been added. Okay, so what we want to do is add Firebase to our dependencies so that we can make um, calls to the database. Interesting. So it's not resolving. So let's try to figure out why that's the case. Interesting. Getting could not find error. Make sure you have the latest Google repository in our Android SDK manager. Pretty sure it will require one of these, so we will just install them all. See if there's anything else. Finish. Oh, and we have an update available, right? So let's add that. Oops. Okay, and let's try syncing again. Sweet. So that worked. Okay. Now what we want to do is just go through a really quick setup where we basically write some data into the Firebase database. So if we go back to the console, we can click on database. It will do some initial setup for us and initializations for us. And in the meantime, we will look up Android Fire database and we will go through an example. Getting started. So we're going to have to add this compile for the Firebase database to our Gradle. Okay, we'll sync now again. And then what we're going to do is just write some data into the database. So if we go to main activity, on here. Strange. Okay, we'll get all these things imported and set value. Cool. And let's debug. Emulator is being launched. Emulator still launching, still taking some time, so slow. Let's go back to the console. Oh my gosh, unbelievably slow. Okay, so in our console we see we have a default node that's already created for us. And then we'll see what happens when this runs. Okay, it's installing right now. Launches the main activity. See, it's launching an activity right now. Let's have it hit our breakpoint. Okay. It's our breakpoint. And let's just run that. Okay. If we go back to our console, refresh the page. Sorry, what happened there? Let's rerun. Ah, I see. So one of the things that we have to do is that the rules for the database is not set to universal, right? And so what we want to do is actually change that. So if you step over this, I think this will fail because we don't have permission, right? Our permission is denied by default. Okay, so let's fix that. Let's read. I think we should set this to true. And right, we set this to true. Publish. Cool. So let's rerun. Building. Okay, so it should hit this breakpoint soon. Okay, awesome. And let's step over this. Okay, step over. And if we go back to our data, we can see that's written. So perfect. That's all you need to do to get set up. So you definitely do this before our lab on Thursday so that we don't have to go through this or spend too much time in lab or during lab. And you can spend your entire time going through the exercise. Awesome. Thanks.